Welcome to Safe and Sound, sponsored by White Mountain Fire Life Safety and Ladies LLC. Today on the show, we have Commander David Sargent with the Pinetop Lakeside Police Department. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Allison.
So I wanted you on the show today to discuss a little bit of your background and where you come from and what's going on in the police department now. And
I started in law enforcement in 1990 in Salt Lake County, and this will be my 26th year.
Wow.
Well, actually 24. Start 25 in January. That's where we are, 25. You know, you start, you get lost in the numbers. So, been at Pinetop Lakeside for 13 years. Currently, Chief Ron Wheeler is the chief of police there. We love Chief Wheeler. He's an outstanding chief of police.
Great guy.
Does a lot of good things for the town of Pinetop Lakeside for us. And that's kind of, we're this next year is unique in that it's the 10-year anniversary of the White Mountain DUI Task Force. On December 31st, we'll mark our 10-year anniversary. When we started looking, actually it's kind of interesting how this came about. When I was in Salt Lake County, I was a DRE, which is a drug recognition expert. And what DREs do is, if you have a traffic stop, you can't smell any alcohol, but there's definitely impairment there. You have the driver step out, you run them through field sobriety tests. If they're impaired, then you arrest for impairment. You bring them down to the police station, and if they blow into the intox meter and they blow zeros, now that officer, your standard patrol officer, has an issue and has a problem because they've not been trained in how to detect other drug categories. And so then they call a DRE. And a DRE comes in, has special training. It's probably the most difficult certification that I've received in law enforcement.
Because all the drugs, I mean, every drug has a different reaction, right?
Yep, there's 7 different drug categories, and depending on what it is that you see in field sobriety tests and in taking blood pressures, pulse, and looking at the eyes in 3 different lighting conditions, you can start to eliminate, well, this drug category doesn't do this, and this drug category doesn't do this. The problem is today we have a lot of poly drug users, which means they're using drugs from 2 different categories and usually have alcohol on board too. And I've arrested or have been part of a DRE examination that the person had 5 of the 7 drug categories on board.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so we're seeing that more and more. So when I came to Pinetop Lakeside, they didn't have any DREs. There was 1 or 2 officers that were HGN certified, and I wanted to get my DRE and get that recertified. So I went down and I talked to Sergeant Brian Swandy at DPS to see what the procedure in Arizona is, because I knew that he was a DRE. And I was sent down to, or I went down to the East Valley DUI Task Force with, at that time, Sergeant Bill Peters with Mesa PD, who's now a commander at Mesa PD, to see what it is that they do, because Arizona treats DUI, and it's very different in Arizona than in Utah. When I was up in Utah, you'd come across the DUI as a result of an accident usually. Very seldom would you get a self-initiated traffic stop where the driver was DUI. When I came to Pinetop Lakeside, you could go out any night of the week, 7 days a week, and you could get at least 1 or 2 drunks if you worked an 8-hour shift. If you worked a 10-hour shift and really looked, you could probably find 4.
Dang.
So, and we were having some fatality issues early on there. And so when I saw what they were doing down in East Valley, I said, man, we need that up here. So I came back up and said, Brian, Sergeant Swanee, what can we do to have this up here? And so we sat down and we brainstormed. We went over and we talked to Commander McNeil, now Commander McNeil at Show Low PD, and a representative from Navajo County Sheriff's Office who's not there now. But back in 2004, we started talking to the Governor's Office of Highway Safety and said, hey, if we started this task force, could we get some funding like the other task forces do? And they said, sure, we'll do that. And so we were the 17th task force to be formed in the state of Arizona. And we started, our inaugural event was on New Year's Eve 2004. Now, what was really interesting there is that night there were more bar fights in Show Low and Pinetop Lakeside than in probably the previous 2 or 3 years, and ever since combined. And you had 17 to 25 officers out working that inaugural event because everybody wanted to be a part of it. And so when we had a bar fight here or there, all of a sudden there's 10 officers there, and everybody's like, where did all these guys come from? So while bar fights aren't the best thing in the world, it sure did help us get our name out there real soon, that, hey, the task force is out here operating, and maybe we should start making different decisions. Now that we're going into our 10-year anniversary, there are parts of the 260 corridor where we can show a 60 to 66% reduction in DUI arrests. Before, we could, every night that we went out, every person that worked would be able to find a DUI. Now we're sending 2 or 3 officers out that have very good skills, very proficient in detecting and apprehending DUI drivers, and they're coming back after making 20, 25 stops and finding nothing but finding 4 designated drivers, or one night 7 designated drivers. So the task force has had an impact, and we cannot operate without the support of the Governor's Office of Highway Safety. We can't operate without the blessing, if you will, of the chiefs of police and the sheriff and the director of the Department of Public Safety, who all allow us to work together to try to reduce alcohol fatalities and impaired driving on White Mountain roads. And I've got to say here, we're grateful for our local population, because that's really dove off. When we started the task force, there was 1 taxi, and they operated in Show Low. One cab, just one car, operated in Show Low, and you could never get them up to Pinetop to take a fare, because they'd missed 2 or 3 fares in Show Low in a time that it took them to go up to Pinetop. And so now you've got, I believe, a couple cab companies with multiple cabs, and you can get a cab whenever you need one. So the message is still, please, we're still out looking. We haven't stopped looking. In fact, we're looking more than we ever did, because when we first started, we were only operating on the holidays. And now we operate not just on the holidays, but on other days through the week as well. So we're always out there looking, and that's part of the being able to show that 60 to 66% reduction. We're making far more stops and finding far fewer drunks. And so that's something to be said about the community that we live in, that people saw that it was a problem, decided to make more responsible decisions. Now, I went back to the training. When we started up here, we had 3 officers that were HGN certified. After the task force started, everybody became HGN certified. Now we've got 2 DREs at Pinetop Lakeside. We have DREs at other agencies. DPS has DREs. We also have phlebotomists. They weren't drawing blood in Pinetop Lakeside.
Oh, wow.
Don't know if they were doing it in Show Low or not. I'm not 100% sure, but now we've actually got 4 or 5 phlebotomists at Pinetop Lakeside. In case someone comes in and refuses, then we can go write a warrant. We don't have to drag them down to the hospital. We can draw the blood right there at the jail. And so we've got 2 guys that are about to be going to the DRE preschool, the prerequisite to get into the DRE school. So I'm hoping that in the next year or 2 we'll have 4 DREs at Pinetop Lakeside, which really ought to be a deterrent to people driving, because now we've got this prescription medication issue.
Yes, that's a big issue.
It went from meth, and everybody was scared of meth because of what meth does. Well, meth's hasn't totally gone away, but it's not in the forefront like it was in 95 and 96 up here. It was just all over in 95, 96 up here. And so now it's prescription drugs, and now prescription drugs are a problem, and people think that, well, I got it from my doctor. They think if they get it from their doctor, they're okay to drive on it. But on the side of the prescription bottle, it says, do not operate heavy machinery while taking this medication. So people need to really be mindful of, just because you get it from a doctor, it's not a freebie to drive on that medication. If you have a legal prescription from a doctor, and we stop you for an infraction, and we ask you to step out of the vehicle and ask you to participate in field sobriety tests, and you show impairment, you'll be arrested for driving under the prescription medication that you're taking. So
Good.
Be careful, careful, careful. And in Pinetop Lakeside, in the last 2 or 3 weeks, we have arrested 2 people that were, well, actually, It's December now, so this was actually in August, end of July, August. We arrested 2 people that could hardly stand up. And their argument to us was, well, we got that from our doctor. Our doctor gave us that medication. Usually people that get medication from their doctor that are that impaired are overdosing themselves, or they have multiple doctors from where they're getting prescriptions. So we have ways of looking at that now. And
Well, and plus when you get
addressing
medication, you're told, don't drive with this, don't do this, don't take it with alcohol, don't,
Well,
there's-
you should, and anybody that gets it from a pharmacy, because I think that's why they started putting the stickers on the side, because pharmacies were being sued, and that's why now you have the option of consulting with a pharmacist. If this is the first time that you've used this drug, would you like a consult with a pharmacist? And they'll ask you that. What other drugs are you taking? And they'll talk about the contraindications of the drug. They'll talk about the problems of mixing this drug with that drug. Because when you're talking about mixing a drug with alcohol, you're not looking at 1 + 1 is 2. It's 1 + 1 might be 4 or 3 or 5 or 6. And when you go 1 + 1 + another 1, now you're up into that equals 7 or 8. So it has like a synergistic effect. When you combine drug categories, the impairment comes forward a lot quicker.
Now, are you guys doing anything special for the 10-year?
Yes, we're looking at a couple of locations right now. So as we get closer, and it will be posted on our department website, probably on Show Low PD's at Navajo counties as well. We will have a central command post that we'll operate out of, but there will be officers all throughout Navajo County in Pine Top, Lakeside, and in Show Low areas. We don't just go, we used to go to just one little area and we would focus on that area. Now we spread out the whole mountain, but we do have a central command post, and we try to address the whole town, all of the cities, all of the town at the same time, rather than just pick a, because what we found was, okay, the task force is operating in Show Low, well, we'll go party in Pine Top. Oh, they're operating in Pine Top, well, we'll go party in Show Low. So the task force to date has actually received 2 awards from the Governor's Office of Highway Safety. One's for innovative enforcement techniques, where we were having an issue with a particular place that was over-serving and people weren't getting designated drivers. And so we set the command post up across the street from that place, and we operated across the street from this establishment all night long. And that kind of changed their behavior for a little while. Got people thinking, well, maybe we shouldn't do this, and maybe we should get a designated driver. Left 15 or 16 cars in the parking lot that night, where usually everybody gets in their car and drives. So, and plus we received an award for, it's interesting when you start dealing with personalities from different departments and different agencies that people sometimes start to become territorial. Well, that hasn't happened here. In fact, I serve as the public information officer for the task force. We get along so well as agencies up here that at one time, when everybody was receiving different amounts of money, when one agency was short, one agency that had a little extra money would float grant money to another, with approval of GOHS, to another agency, and that just doesn't happen anywhere in the state. Well, it might, but it's a rare occurrence. And so when they saw that happening up here, they said, well, wow, you guys get along up there. And yeah, we're in it to make sure that the public is safe when they're out motoring, especially the innocent public. That's about the worst thing in the world, is show up to a serious motor vehicle accident where there's somebody that you know, and have that either be a critical injury accident or a fatality. Those are much more difficult to deal with in a metro setting where you don't know the people at all. You hardly ever come across people that you know in a metro setting. But up here where it's smaller, we are community and we are family, and we're really trying to just protect the family.
And that's what you guys are doing. And I want to say congratulations on the 10 years.
Well, thanks.
I think that's awesome.
Now, there's a lot of people said that we wouldn't see 2 years, so yeah.
Well, and thank you. Thank you for keeping and protecting my family.
Well, thank you for the time here to talk to the public, and thank the public for, they have part in this. They're the ones that have actually made the choice to quit driving while they're drinking and make more responsible choices. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. And thanks to the public for being responsible. And we'll be right back. Make sure you stay tuned for our next guest. Welcome back to Safe and Sound. Our next guest is Marta Call, the Deputy Public Affairs Officer for the Apache Sitgreaves National Forest. Welcome back.
Thank you, Allison.
It's good to see you again.
Good to see you.
So we asked you on today because we wanted to, being Christmas and all, we wanted to discuss Christmas trees.
Okay.
And how to get those and where to get those. I know that when I was a little kid, I told you this earlier, we moved from California. We thought it was the coolest thing to be able to go out into the forest with an axe, chop down your tree, and bring it home. So I'm sure there's other people out there that really enjoy that experience.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, thousands of people across the country cut their trees from national forests.
Really?
That's where they get them from.
And they bring in, they get to pick their own tree and bring it into their beautiful
What
home.
happens is they can come into any of the Apache Sitgreaves district offices, the supervisor's office, or the Mogollon Rim Visitor Center. They can buy a tree permit there. They pick an area where they'd like to go. Lots of people know where they like to go all the time. They've been doing this for, centuries, maybe not centuries, but for years. It's a family tradition, and they go out usually and just go pick an area, and then they take their permit out and they cut a tree down, take it home.
Well, is there any rules to what kind of tree they have to look for?
They have a list of all the different kinds of species. Obviously, you want it to kind of look like a Christmas tree, don't cut the aspen or anything like that. The permits are $15.
Oh, wow.
We usually have about 3,700 permits or so to sell throughout the entire Apache Sitgreaves.
Do people buy that many? That many?
Yes.
Wow.
We usually sell out every year.
Holy moly.
And no more than 10 feet tall. And you just one per household. You get one tree for your house, and you go up in the forest on the day you choose to do it and go cut your tree down. Make a day of it. Take the hot chocolate, cookies, donuts, whatever. Make a day of it.
That's pretty neat. Yeah, like I said, I've done it once. I can't do it anymore. My husband's severely allergic to Christmas trees, which sucks. we get the plastic
The
tree.
little fake tree. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a small house anyway, so it works. But now with the Christmas trees, there's also after the fact how to dispose of the Christmas trees.
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty cool because I came from an area that did recycling, so I checked with the city of Show Low, and they have a tree cycle program.
Oh, cool.
And so watching your local newspaper on Show Low's website, the city of Show Low's website, and they'll let you know exactly when that starts. But it usually starts right after Christmas, usually the end of December when people are getting rid of their trees, and they go through like mid-January. And it's in cooperation with Novo Powers. So the tree doesn't just get dumped in the dump or something like that. If it goes to Novo, it gets changed into a biomass. Pinetop Lakeside has let me look at my paper because this is new to me, the Mountain Meadow Recreation Center. They have an area there where you can take your tree and drop it off. And the same thing, watch the newspaper and listen to the radio stations, and they'll let you know exactly what those dates are.
Yeah, because those trees can end up being a hazard eventually.
Yeah.
If they're not watered or taken care of. I mean, it's still a live tree. It's like it's like cutting a flower and putting it in a vase.
Right.
The same thing.
You want to, read up on some safety measures. They always have lots of stuff in papers and websites about what to do with a live tree in your house. I mean, you've cut this guy down, and you need to make sure he keeps watered, and you turn your lights off and make sure you're safe with that tree in the house. But yeah, and then when you're done with it, check out the websites and stuff, and you can figure out where you can take him.
Now, do you guys specifically plant trees for this, or they just go out and it's a free-for-all?
You can go out and pick a tree, and most people know what they're looking for. I would take a tape measure. I did this one time and got a tree that was like 15 feet tall. Didn't fit on my car, didn't fit in my house.
But it was pretty.
It was pretty.
Yeah, no, that's true. Well,
Yeah.
you have people out there beating their chests for the tallest tree, I'm sure.
Right. So, but I would be, figure out what kind of tree you like. I'm not a real tree person. They're all green.
As long as it looks like a Christmas tree, you're pretty good.
I could go pick it out and have a good time.
Okay, well, wonderful. Now, the other thing with the trees that I want to point out is, like you said, not getting it too big because it won't fit on your vehicle. So why do they pick 10 feet, do you know, or that's just the number?
I think a tree's height is dependent on its age. So a smaller tree, a 10-foot tree in the forest is a small tree. And that probably also helps out with some fire prevention measures, you know. You've got less small trees in the forest clogging up the forest floors.
Which is
And so
good.
that probably helps out with that.
Yeah, you get them in there to do some little a bit of mitigation for the
Yeah,
forest,
yeah.
which is very helpful.
I think
Everybody get a tree.
Everybody gets to help out and do something like that, yeah.
So when they're looking for a tree, you said earlier, just look for one that looks like a Christmas tree,
I would think so, yeah.
because there are different types of species out there.
There are. I mean, we've got lots of different species in some places. I was at Hannigan Meadows a few weeks ago, and someone had gone up and put little tags that didn't harm the trees, but so you could identify some trees.
Oh, that's cool.
So maybe do some research, figure out what kind of different trees we have. We have people who specialize in that in the forest, and
Yeah.
check it out.
Look on the internet before you go out.
Yes.
Now, the other thing with the trees too is to be careful of the bark beetles, right?
Mhm.
Do we have that out there? I mean, is this something you can take a dead tree home and not know it?
Probably. I think if you were concerned about that, I would go and Google it. I would go and look and see what the signs are and that kind of thing. We're pretty fortunate we don't have a lot of beetle kill
Good.
on the ABARS, so
Good, because I know that a few years back, quite some time back, you know, that was an issue actually up here because of the drought. I
Right.
mean, and with this season we've had so far, I mean, yes, there's still a drought and it's going to take a while to get back from that, but the rain has been very helpful and has allowed those trees to produce the sap to get rid of.
it. And not only that, a lot of the trees we have, because of the things we've been able to do as far as mitigation and clearing out forest and stuff, you get older big trees and they build up a resistance to that. They're able to have a heavier bark and that kind of thing so that you don't have that problem.
Which is
'Cause,
important.
yeah, I don't think I'd want the little beetles in my house.
No, and yeah, and you want to make sure to walk around the tree too and make
Yeah.
sure it's full
Make
and
sure it's good looking in it. Because
Yeah.
some people like nice short fat trees and other people like tall trees with more space between the branches. It's kind of a personal thing, so.
I remember my dad, he wanted the tallest tree he could get because we had the vaulted ceilings growing up.
I have
and
a
he's-
friend who has a 14-foot ceiling in her living room, so she always goes up on the forest where she lives and gets a big tree.
Yeah, just to fill that area, which is nice. And Christmas is a fun time, and
Yeah.
it's really great to have that kind of thing to do with your family, to take them out there and
Yeah.
make it a yearly thing. Oh, we go pick the tree together.
Yeah, and where I came from in Utah, that was people were pretty intense about that. We usually start selling mid-November,
Okay.
so that people can start going and go wherever it is. Either come to the Forest Service offices, and we hope to be able to partner with the Big Five sports stores again,
Okay.
and you'll be able to pick them up there. So about the end of October, we'll put out all that information, tell you where they're going to be sold, not just at the forest, but if we'll be partnering again with Big Five. Not just here in Show, but like down in the valley too, Chandler, Flagstaff, that kind of thing. And then what happens is then you can go where you need to and make it a family thing. Because my understanding is people come up like the day after Thanksgiving. It's a good day, your family comes in to have Thanksgiving with you, and then maybe the day after Thanksgiving that weekend go cut your Christmas tree.
Wow, you'd think that was a long time to have the tree in there, but if you're properly watering it.
Yeah, and
take
if
care
you
of it-
leave it out, if it's chilly, and you can leave it outside till it kind of settles down and gets used to not being in the ground.
Okay. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like I said, I would love to be able to go get a Christmas tree, but I can't.
Yeah, I know, I'm allergic too, so.
Yeah, it's weird, and even the pine stuff that you spray on the tree to make it more piney, and that was something that we really liked. You know, the only thing that we used to complain about as kids was the sap. Well, it's sticky. I got the
Everywhere.
sap on me, you know, and it gets on your car. But if you bring a tarp and you prepare to go out
Yeah.
there, you should be okay. And then make sure that that Christmas tree is actually attached to your vehicle. You know,
Yeah, do all the safety measures, tie it down, put it in the back of your truck, make sure you've got it tied down good. And like we said, let it get home. And usually most people, I understand, they let their tree sit outside a day or two, which kind of lets it relax, let some of that sap bleed out.
Oh,
So
that
you don't
makes
end
sense.
up with so much sap in the house and that kind of thing, and then take them inside and get them good and watered again. And
And then just the tools to use would be
hand saws, I'm not going to say chainsaw because I've never cut trees on this forest. Other forests I came from, you cut trees with hand saws, so you weren't
Okay.
allowed to use chainsaws. So
Now, when they go in, and do they get these directions?
yes,
on
we
what to
have
do?
a list of stipulations which tell you what size tree. It reminds you what size tree, what your area is. So there's specific areas on each district that they might have a map available for the tree cutter, and then you have a little tag, a type of permit that you have that you're going to attach to your Christmas tree, so that you don't get in trouble for illegally cutting trees down.
Oh yeah, no, you're definitely going to need that.
Yeah.
Well, this is great information, Marta. I appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing this, because now people know where to go, and they need to act quickly, because it sounds like you guys sell out
Yeah.
every year, and you can't prolong that or get more.
No, we estimate how many we sell every year, and this is kind of traditionally, we usually sell under 4,000 permits on the ABARS, so that's normally what we order, is right about that, that amount. Not quite 4,000. They've looked at it over the few years that we've been doing it and say, oh, okay, we need this many tree permits, and we can afford to have this many trees taken.
Okay, and that's perfect, because they're actually helping the forest to stay healthy.
And the timber people are in charge of this. It's not like public affairs or something is in charge of this. The people who are the specialists are in charge of this program.
Well, then that's why it's working so well.
Right.
Well, again, thank you so much for coming on here and explaining to our viewers how to get their Christmas tree, and how to also dispose of their Christmas tree.
Yep.
And then for any more information, they can go.
They can come to the ABARS website, the ASNFS website.
Okay.
We will also have a Christmas tree hotline. We normally do that every year, and we'll put that number out in the newspaper and on the radio station so that people know what that is. So you can call and get further information about the Christmas tree permit program.
Wonderful, and I'm sure we can put it on here too as well.
Yeah.
So thanks again for coming on the show.
All right. Thank you, Allison.
All right. Thank you for watching Safe and Sound, and we'll see you next month.